And welcome into the Week 16 edition of the Consistently Cashin podcast here at BigGuyFantasySports.com. I'm Colby Conway at Colby R. Conway over on X. And with me here, as always, rocking the sweater. I didn't have mine on. I wore it for the Consistency Show on Thursday. So I'm just wearing, shout out RotoWear, for the t-shirt. Ron Rigney. So how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. We got the big holiday coming up, and speaking of, did we cash last week? I don't even remember.
Nope.
Dang, I was hoping that
Nope.
wasn't the answer, but we're going to get back on track this week. We're going
No,
to get you some of that holiday cash
we
back.
couldn't replicate that high from that 52nd out of 9,000 or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's a tough one to get back to, but we're going to do our damnedest to do it today. And this is a weird slate, man. 3 games today. We've got a couple games tomorrow. It's kind of sprinkled all about. We've got games Monday. So with this main slate, I built something. I told you off air. I built it. I don't know how I feel about it, but I have a feeling we're going to be on the same page with a lot of these. So let's see what we can get done here.
Yeah, and last week we put up 131. 18 from Stafford, 21 Rashad White. We had the 1.4 from Bijan. We picked the wrong Rams receiver.
Yeah.
Jaden Reed got a 17. We got 21 from Curtis Samuel, 29 from Njoku, but then 9 from Zeke and 2 from the Jets. It was really just the Bijan. He was one of our highest priced guys, and Bijan at only 16.8% owned too. If he would have done well, that would have been a separator for us. And instead, we were on the wrong side of that one. So hopefully week 16 treats us a little better. So let's go over. Let's take a look at the board over at DraftKings here. Looking at quarterback, we only got 3 above 7,000 because CJ Stroud is not going to play. We got Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa facing against each other, and Justin Fields up at $7,100. Do any of those top 3 quarterbacks crack your lineup, Ron?
The way that I had to build it, I felt like I wanted to pay a little more attention to the skill players because I feel like there's so many less of them to choose from. So I did not go with any of those top price guys. However, I can see that Dolphins game, that Dolphins-Cowboys game becoming track meet on grass, especially if Tyreek Hill ends up playing. I was trying to find our total here for that game. Let's see what we've got here. 48.5 to 49.5. So that's got to be one of the highest ones of the week. So if you can justify the rest of your lineup going with one of those 2 guys, I know Dak has not been as great on the road as he has been at home, but I also know that those Dolphins offense has not been as good as it should be against some of the better teams in the league, and that Cowboys defense can bring it. So, I think you could pick one or the other, whichever one fits your lineup best, but I don't think I'm going to go with any of those. Justin Fields, I don't feel too bad about, but I went pretty far down the list to get my quarterback. I don't know how you feel about it.
I love Justin Fields this week. He would be the top one I would pay up for there, just with the rushing upside and what I think he can do through the air against Arizona. Of the top price guys, he's the guy I'm looking at the most, but you dropped down. So who is your quarterback that you kind of have fallen for?
And I don't know if this is me just kind of trying to get behind my guy this week that I need to perform in the playoffs in the Kings Classic, but I threw Joe Flacco in there at $5,500 against that Houston defense. I feel like that could be kind of a sneaky high scoring game as well. Even though you don't have C.J. Stroud on the other side, you've got Devin Singletary, you got some playmaking receivers. Noah Brown was a guy that we talked about a little bit last week too that went off a little bit. So Joe Flacco's been able to insert himself in the lineup and get it done. So I think at $5,500 with the rest of my build, that's kind of the direction I had to go. But I did like Justin Fields there at the top if we can make it work.
Check out the Prop It Like It's Hot podcast and article, and you'll see that I'm backing Joe Flacco in some type of way this week. So I like him at 5,500. I like Nick Mullins a good bit just because Detroit's been so generous to receivers of late, and that's really the strength of what Nick Mullins has. So I like Nick Mullins at 5,300. I really like Flacco at 5,500. Other than that, I'm going all the way up and paying up for Justin Fields. That's just how I've kind of felt at quarterback. So we'll circle back at that position and take a look and see how things shake out there. But let's head on over to running back, where 2 Dolphins are in the top 4 with Rashad White and Jonathan Taylor, and then 2 Detroit running backs follow suit there. Any of these top price running backs kind of catching your eye a little bit that you would be willing to pay up for this week?
Looking at here again, it's very possible those Dolphins backs could get a little bit of points for you, and especially Raheem Mostert because he just seems to do it week after week. But I think you got to go with Rashad White, and I think Rashad White is almost automatic in the lineup at this point. He's either 9 or 10 straight clutch games at this point. Gotten it done every week. You saw what he did last week. Went for, let's see here, 89 yards. Had a couple catches for 50 and a score. Went over 100 yards on the ground a couple times. He's gotten 20 carries each of the last 3 weeks, and I feel like he's the guy that I want to pay a little bit more for this week because I think it's going to pan out.
Yep, I'd be okay with that. Of the top price guys, I don't know if I'll get to many of them, to be honest. There's some good value at running back this week. If we drop down a little bit for me, I'm a sucker for Breece Hall this week. It's such a good
Mhm.
matchup. Washington run defense is so bad, and I think this is a get right week for Breece Hall. He has not been consistent of late, which scares me a little bit. He had the big receiving day, and even before that, he didn't have the volume last week, but I think that rectifies itself a little bit. I think he gets back to double-digit points, which should give us 2x ROI. So I really like Breece Hall. I love Chuba Hubbard. $5,700 for a guy who's gotten 20 plus carries in the last 3 weeks is
Mhm.
ridiculous. And then while the matchup sucks for Devin Singletary, he had 30 opportunities last week, and that's not going to change. So, I mean, you could honestly go sub 6K for Chuba Hubbard and Devin Singletary and get 50 combined touches between your two running backs, which is pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's not too often that you can go below that and get two guys with 20 carries apiece. And I'm glad you brought up Chuba Hubbard because that's immediately where I went with my RB2 spot at $5,700. And he's gotten he's gotten 20 carries the last 2 weeks, like you said, but also 8 times on the season he's gotten double digit carries. Love to see him a little bit more involved in the passing game, but if he's getting it on the ground 20 plus times, I don't see a reason for that to stop. I don't see that pass offense figuring it out anytime soon. So $5,700, like you said, for that amount of volume is crazy to pass up.
Yep, that's why Hubbard will be one of the ones that I'm in on. I just got the tweet on my or the post on X on my phone. Zach Moss has been downgraded to out, so it is going to be the Jonathan Taylor show. So if you want to go with him, you certainly can. For me, I'm hanging out probably Chuba Hubbard and Devin Singletary, the two I'm going with. I'm just going to pay down at running back, get a ton of touches, and then we can exploit wide receiver, which sees Tyreek Hill, CD Lamb, Amon-Ra, Justin Jefferson, all $8,000 and above. And I'll be honest, I love every single one of them.
I would agree. I mean, at those guys right there, it's you're splitting hairs at this point, and I'm not going to obviously go with Justin Jefferson just because don't know if I trust Nick Mullins in there. Nick Mullins is all right, but I don't know if we're going to get the volume like that. But you pay up that extra $100. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is a guy that I tried every which way from Sunday to get him in my lineup. Could not do it. Had to go sub 8 grand on all three of my receivers with the way I went with my running backs. But I would love to be able to get CD Lamb or Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I don't know about you, but I haven't seen anything indicating to me that Tyreek Hill is not going to play either. And showing out against Dallas at home, to me, that just seems like Tyreek Hill's matchup proof at this point. And there's going to be points scored in that game, like we talked about before.
Yeah, it seems like he is going to be out there. The one thing I will say for Justin Jefferson, that's kind of why I do like him a lot this week, is that he owns Detroit dating back to 2020. He's played the Lions 6 times. 3 for 64, 9 for 133, 7 for 124, 11 for 182, 3 for 14, 11 for 223. I'm just saying.
It's pretty
He
good.
owns
It's
them.
pretty good.
He owns them. CeeDee Lamb and Tyreek Hill are both matchup proof. I absolutely agree. CeeDee Lamb, they move him around the field so much,
Right.
he won't get locked in on any one Miami corner. So I think you're fine there. If you drop below the 8K range, I will tell you I am all aboard DJ Moore this week. He's my guy. You look at some of these matchups, he was down last week with only 9.2. He gets back to a really good matchup, and look what he's done in past really good matchups. 26, 25, 22. Obviously, he dropped that 50 burger on Washington, so the ceiling is there for him, and the Arizona corners are not good. DJ Moore should not be below $7,000 on DraftKings this week. This must be an early holiday gift from our friends
No,
at DraftKings.
and I agree. And if we need to go in Justin Fields, I mean, it doesn't even need to be said that you're stacking it with DJ Moore no matter when you put him in the lineup.
Yep. And even if you don't go Fields, you can definitely go DJ Moore. You will be just
Mm-hmm.
fine there. Amari Cooper, someone that's kind of interesting because the targets have been there with Joe Flacco, but I don't really like going at the Houston boundary corners. Steven Nelson and Derek Stingley have been pretty good, especially of late. I would rather look at the slot against Desmond King or take maybe a player of another position that we'll talk about in a little bit. So I'm not really looking at Amari Cooper. I do like Jordan Addison at $6,000. I like Garrett Wilson at 58. I can't, if I'm doing Breece Hall, I can't also do Garrett Wilson. This is not an offense that can sustain multiple pieces.
Okay.
I would love Jaden Reed. I don't think he plays. He hasn't practiced all
I
week.
don't think he does either.
He's
You're right.
banged up. So honestly, one of my favorite values is end up going to be Dontavian Wicks. He's questionable, but should play. But $4,300, he's already kind of started to get more targets, as we can see here, 4+. And I mean, what is that? 7 straight games? 7 straight games. And now no Christian Watson, no Jaden Reed. Dontavian Wicks looks like a really good value play.
Yeah, and sticking with those Green Bay receivers too, Romeo Dobbs, another guy that I looked at that I kind of liked a little bit, but I think I like Wicks a little more. My receivers, I ended up going with Mike Evans. Jacksonville's allowing the sixth most fantasy points to receivers, and that's a big game for both teams. Especially Tampa's not at all out of it, very much in a playoff mix, and so they're going to be trying to get in there. I threw Amari Cooper in mine just because that's the way the money worked out, mainly because of the targets, but I don't love it. I do like it being stacked with Joe Flacco, and then Drake London against Indy for $5,100. I mean, he's the guy that's getting targets in that offense. You know, we talked about Bijan Robinson and his lack of production and his lack of opportunities, but Drake London's been the one guy that seems like has been getting it done. And obviously, you can throw on Indy a little bit, although they have gotten a little better. But at $5,100 in the wide receiver one that could get double-digit targets, I don't think that's all bad.
I don't mind DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith and Jigba as well if you want. I like Metcalf more so, but slot receivers have done well against Tennessee, so you could also look to Jackson Smith and Jigba if we come down a little bit here. Parker Washington could be interesting. I know Lawrence isn't expected to play. I guess he's still technically questionable, but he's been getting some targets and he's pretty cheap down there, so I don't mind him. If you need a big play, you could look at Jamal Agnew or maybe even like a Cedric Tillman type, just because Tillman's starting to get targets too. And again, slot receivers against Houston have tended to fare a little bit better. But if you are looking to attack Houston, David Njoku is the one you want to go with. They've been bad against tight ends all year. I know you and Bob have talked about it on the consistency show because Bob told me on this week's consistency show where you couldn't be there and I was there. He told me that you all have talked about Njoku quite a lot. So to get him as the fifth highest priced tight end, just 5,300 after this insane little run that he's on, he seems like a really good value and a very logical stack with Joe Flacco.
And I like that stack a little better, and that's where I originally went at first, but I couldn't make the money work with receivers that I actually liked being in my lineup. So I ended up pivoting out and going with Evan Ingram against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's in the bottom. They've allowed 81 grabs for 845 yards, 5 scores to the tight end position. Whether Lawrence plays or not, I still kind of like that play, but I'd love to make that money work so I can go with that Flacco Njoku stack instead of having Amari Cooper in there, which is the way that I had to go. I feel a little better about going that way.
Yeah, I think we'll have the money. At this point, you can't fault anyone for playing Trey McBride. I like TJ Hawkinson a good bit too. If we go down a little bit, looking here, I mean, maybe Cade Otton, just because Jacksonville hasn't been great against tight ends. You could look to him, but he isn't quite as consistent as we would like for our cash game lineup. So I'm pretty much paying up for tight end. And the price points are very affordable. Like it's not like it's not like last year where it's like, yeah, we're gonna pay up for tight end. It's Travis Kelce, and he's like an elite wide receiver price. That's just not the case. So I'm gonna pay up at tight end, but still be very, very affordable. If we head on over to defense, Green Bay at 3,900. Not sure if we're going to go there because I'm assuming we're going to have Chuba Hubbard in the lineup. Honestly, looking at it, I'm very surprised that the Texans defense is higher priced than Cleveland. That is really interesting. And I know Case Keenum did it last week, but it's against Tennessee, who's a soft, banged up defense, which is something Cleveland is not. So Cleveland at 3,400 seems really appealing to me, as much as I hate to say it. And then the other one I like is the Jets at 3,100. The defense is so darn good. I know they let us down last week, but I'm willing to go back to them.
I agree, man. They really hung us out to dry last week. Couldn't get it done, but I looked there for $3,100. That's hard to not go with, especially against Washington. And I'm with you on the Browns too. And don't get tricked by that red number 6 by that Browns defense in that matchup against Houston. Remember, they are without C.J. Stroud for the second straight week. So both of those are fairly affordable. I ended up with the way my lineup was built. I had $100 left over, so I could pay up for Cleveland. I went with Atlanta. I know that Jonathan Taylor's back. I know Gardner Minshew's in there. I don't know what you're getting out of Michael Pittman if you didn't see that nasty hit that he took last week, which I don't know how you could miss it. I don't know what he's playing, but I don't know what to expect from him. I would assume if he's in the lineup, he's probably good to go. But as well as Gardner's played, Gardner's had some bonehead moments, and that Atlanta defense is very, very stingy to opposing running backs. I don't know. I'm not sure yet if they've allowed a touchdown. I know if they have, it's not very many. But Jonathan Taylor coming back could be a little rusty, but he could also run all over him because it's Jonathan Taylor. But like that Falcons defense, if you want to save a little bit of cash, but I've got that $100 to play with, so I think I'm going to pay it for Cleveland.
Yep, I like Cleveland, the Jets. Those are the two that I'm kind of locked in. So let's go ahead. Let's head over to quarterback. I mean, it seems like we're gonna have a little bit of money. We may actually end up being able to get up to Fields. But do you want to start? Just throw Flacco in there and see where we shake out.
Yeah.
Okay. Running back. Well, actually, let me do this. Excuse me. We got to get the player that we want to lock in. So Flacco, let's just say that was an agreed choice. We each get one player that we want to lock in. Who do you want to lock in the lineup?
Oh, that's tough. I hate to keep going back to the same guy, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I feel really good about that Mike Evans matchup in that game against Jacksonville.
All right, lock in Mike Evans. I'm going to lock in Chuba Hubbard. So next running back, you want to put Devin Singletary, see where the money shakes out, just ride volume.
Sure. Yeah.
Wide receiver, I really want DJ Moore.
Okay.
So I think we're going to be okay there. And then we need another wide receiver. 18, 9, 5. So we're not going to be able to get a big boy. Do you want to try like a Dontavion Wicks, or do you want to look to more like
another guy that I was looking as I scroll down the list here is Marquise Brown is not playing, and I know that Arizona passing offense is not something that you want to hang your DFS hat on, but a guy that I thought about maybe throwing a dart at was Rondale Moore at $3,500, or Greg Dortch, or one of those guys that's going to have to step up and catch passes. Another guy to look at tight end is Trey McBride too, but I threw Rondale Moore in there for $3,500. I don't feel great about it, but I feel like if we're paying up at a couple other spots, we're going to have a guy like that in there that's a swing for the fences type. I don't mind Wicks either if the money works, but I went Rondale Moore.
Let's see where the money shakes out. Let's come over to tight end. If I can control this stupid screen. Let's go Njoku. It gives us the stack with Flacco. Let's throw the Jets defense since we have Singletary. So now we're at 10-4 for a wide receiver in a flex. That's basically like two $5,000 guys. So we could, if we go Breece Hall, 4,300 for receiver. Guess who that gives us?
Yeah, buddy.
So that would put us at, we'd have Flacco and Singletary from that game. Breece Hall and the Jets. So we're saying that the Jets are going to win. They'll lean on Breece Hall. We got Njoku for the stack with Flacco. Wicks is a one-off. DJ Moore is a one-off. Mike Evans is a one-off. I kind of like that.
I do. I think that's good. That's much better than the one. It's got elements of what I like for my lineup, but I like it quite a bit better than what I have sitting here in front of me.
Cool. Let's go ahead and lock it in. So the Week 16 consistently Cashin lineup: Joe Flacco, Chuba Hubbard, Devin Singletary, Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Dontavion Wicks, David Njoku, Breece Hall, and the Jets defense. That'll be it. Ron, let everyone know where they can find you, what you got here at BigGuyFantasySports.com.
Yeah, at Ron Rigney on the X Machine. Check out BigGuyFantasySports.com. Like Colby said, I did not get a clutch game this week for the consistency show, but my guys Bob Long and Colby R. Conway did. So go check that out. Go check out everything that's coming out over there. All that super good stuff. All the tools to help you figure out the matchups to start sits in your league over at BigGuyFantasySports.com.
Absolutely. And you can find me over on X at Colby R. Conway and here at BigGuyFantasySports.com. Obviously, the Consistently Cashin podcast, the Prop It Like It's Hot article and podcast, and the Who's Hot, Who's Not article that comes out on Tuesdays, I believe it is, of each week. So make sure you give us a follow. Check out all of the great content here at BigGuyFantasySports.com. And we'll see you next week with the Week 17 edition of the Consistently Cashin podcast.